How about you trying to find a drink?
As a beef calf, this animal is destined for the table. But until his time is up, I want him to live as natural and free-ranging a life as possible.
That was practically a skip.
He wants to be a horse.
For a newborn calf like mine, born into a traditional beef herd like this one, the outlook's really pretty good. And in fact, for most of his 18 month to 2.5 year life, he'll be doing what cows were designed to do. Suckling his mother, living in this family group. He'll be outside eating grass with the sun on his back. For a bull calf born into the dairy system, on the other hand, the prospects are really very different.
Pure breed male dairy calves are obviously of no use to the milk industry, and the dairy breeds are not considered meaty enough to raise as beef. So what sort of fate awaits them then? Normally, a pretty grim one. In Europe, they still go to the highly controversial veal industry. Despite a recent ban on the notorious crate system, it's still legal in Europe to keep veal calves for their entire existence in a very confined space. In fact, you're allowed to keep them in a space 1.8 meters squared. That's just big enough for them to turn around in, and it's what I'm standing in right now. And that's not all. Many continental veal calves don't get any straw bedding and are deprived of the vital roughage they need to develop a healthy gut. Instead, they're fed almost exclusively on milk, creating the infamous white veal. But simply shunning this veal doesn't necessarily solve the problem.
Now these male dairy calves face a different kind of problem. They have almost no commercial value, and the result of that is harsh but pretty much inevitable. Bang! A bullet in the head within hours of birth. And surely that's a terrible, unacceptable waste of life and food.
I'm on my way to see a commercial dairy farmer who's looking for a constructive solution.
I must say I'm feeling a little bit uneasy. I'm about to visit what's essentially an indoor rearing system. Not quite sure what I think about that yet.
Mrs. Kimber believes that the higher welfare rosé veal she produces will convince me.
We are farmers, we love our cattle, we love the job we're doing. We're not in it for killing or bad treatment.
These veal calves spend the first 3 or 4 days of their lives in this outdoor nursery field. So far, so good.
7, Tom, which one's that?
So we've got 2 boys here.
We've got 2 boys. This one will give us some very nice veal. Lovely, mission accomplished.
Well done, boys. 2 little bull calves like that, they wouldn't have got ear tags. They'd have had bullets 2 days ago, within hours of birth. How do you feel about that?
It's a tragedy. There's no reason for these animals not to land up as good meat.
But within a few days, these animals are brought indoors, or at least under cover. They're kept in open-sided pens in small groups, well bedded on straw. But they won't be seeing the grass again.
Why can't they actually be out on the pasture with their mothers, enjoying the grass and the sun on their back?
You know, that would be the creme de la creme, but it does not work. Dairy cows are bred to produce a lot of milk, and if these were left with their mothers, they would have too much milk, and of course, we wouldn't have any milk.
So to some extent, it is a sort of commercial welfare compromise.
Absolutely.
It's a tricky one for me. Although I'd love to see these animals out on pasture, this is clearly a massive improvement on the lives of continental veal calves.
How are they after 5, 6, 7 months?
Well, if you just walk across the yard, they'll show you.
Over here, are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's have a look. They've got their natural food there to eat, and of course then they'll lie down and cud. So that is how they display their natural behaviour.
To be tender veal rather than second-rate beef, the calves in Mrs. Kimber's system are still fed milk all their lives. But they also get natural roughage from cereals. It makes their meat a little pinker, but keeps the animals in better health.
So these chaps are the finished article?
Absolutely.
From one pen to the next, I'm wondering what I'm going to see, and in each case I'm actually seeing animals in really good condition. These guys almost look the best of all. I mean, they've really got a sheen to them.
My job as a farmer is to make sure that these animals have as best as we can give them.
That's right.
And we feel we do that.
Good welfare is based on good husbandry that meets the animals' needs. And these calves seem comfortable and contented in their straw-laden pens.
I'm really impressed by the finish on these animals, and I'd really like to try some of your veal. Could be one of these chaps.
Yeah, it will be this chap in the middle.
It does look in very good nick.
So, is 6 to 8 months under Mrs. Kimber's watchful eye better than a bullet in the head or a life in Europe's veal system? I think it is. But veal's been off the menu in this country for so long, will people ever want to eat it again? Higher welfare or not?
Come on, boys.
To find out,
Here you go.
I'll be cooking some up at Taunton Farmers Market.
In early June, there's so much veg coming through in the garden that's almost ready, but not quite. And that can be very tantalising.
But you don't have to get your taste buds in a twist, because the perennial and overwintered herbs are always ahead of the veg. And one of my favourites is parsley.
Today, it's a big bunch I'm after for my local low food miles version of an Italian classic, pesto.
I'm chopping the washed, picked over and de-stalked parsley nice and fine, but not to dust. The grater is the perfect tool for very finely chopped garlic. 1 fat clove should do it.
Parmesan is the classic pesto cheese, but this isn't a classic pesto. And this is a beautiful local cheese called Devon Oak. It's cheddary, semi-hard, and it has a fantastic flavour. And even my lovely oils are local, both produced here in the West Country. Rapeseed and hemp.
There's no pine nuts in this pesto, as I want it to shout parsley. Season with salt and pepper, and hey pesto is ready for the jar. This will stay fresh and delicious for a week in the fridge.
So there you have it, a perfect parsley pesto, so authentically West Country that I'm almost tempted to put a blob of clotted cream in it.
Not a bad idea actually if you're serving it with plain boiled pasta, but why not make hot pesto bread by spreading it thickly into a sliced loaf and baking it in the oven for 10 minutes.
Well, if this tastes as good as it smells, I think it's going to blow me away. Wow, what I love about this is that it reminds me what a dearly beloved herb our parsley is, and rightly so. It's gorgeous.
Coming up, daggers are drawn as Gil and I have a butchery face-off.
You're in a perfect position now to cut Hugh's throat.
Things haven't got that bad, have they, Gil?
Grow Your Own fever sweeps the nation, and it's catching.
We've got a tiny little strip of concrete garden. No, I never ever thought we'd get anything this big. Fantastic idea.
And it's time to reveal the new veal. But will the public end up getting into a stew about it?
I don't see the need, personally. Why?
Ray the meat maestro has come to River Cottage to help us butcher a side of Mrs. Kimber's veal.
What do you think, Ray?
My mouth's watering. Because it's been fed a little bit of hard food, you've got more flavour in it with the fat. I mean, traditionally, veal wouldn't have had any of this fat on at all.
And it wouldn't be nearly as big as this.
No, it wouldn't be half as big as this.
My first task is to divide this side of veal into the forequarter and hindquarter.
You need to count 3 ribs down. That's 1, 2, 3. Lovely.
It's a tricky first cut.
Keep going.
The saw is used for the bones,
Just go with the knife now.
and the knife for the flesh.
Yeah.
Like any keen student, I want to be top of the class.
Have I gone off piece?
That's it. Well,
So it's not entirely straight. Marks out of 10 for the first cut.
about 7. You struggled a bit.
Right. Okay, the gauntlet's down. Next cut for you, Gil, I think.
You've drawn the short straw thing here because this is the most expensive bit. We've got to get this right. You know, it's double the value on the rump steak side.
I'm with you. Very good
Stop.
for you.
Okay. That's it. You heard that crack?
I heard the crack.
That's the bones gone now.
I've got the weight of it.
Yeah, you're in a perfect position now to cut Hugh's throat. So
Things haven't got that bad, have they, Gil?
No.
Keep going, that's excellent.
I'm quite close to the tip of that knife.
Okay, so right, it's yours, Hugh.
Whee!
It's a perfect cut, and that's exactly what you're aiming for.
I'm not sure I want to hear this, but marks out of 10 for the boy?
Nearly 9.
Nearly 9?
Nearly 9.
You nearly got 9.
Is that a 9?
No, it's an 8.
No, 9 stuck in my throat, I couldn't say it.
The famous Italian veal dish ossobuco comes from the shin, above the knee, on the front and back legs.
Okay,
He dropped it.
I think the nerves are kicking in a bit here, aren't they?
Ossobuco is slowly braised with wine and herbs until the sinewy muscle becomes meltingly tender and rich.
I think you're back on about 6, maybe. I nearly said 5. What we're going to do
Brisket,
now,
sometimes called breast of veal, is from the ribs and belly. It's a third of the price of rump or loin, but twice as tasty.
Gil, what do you think about this for you for the end of the week?
Oh, I could definitely use it. Roasted whole on the bone with some
Oh,
thyme.
right,
Beautiful.
yeah, lovely
Thanks
too.
a lot.
Very
We might have to pop down for a bit of that.
nice. Ooh, no.
From above the brisket comes the 4-rib roast. And from the shoulder, plenty of good stewing meat for pies and casseroles.
I'm going to make no secret about this, Ray. I'm really going for a perfect pile of beautiful stewing meat there. I'm looking for a 9 out of 10 at least. And if I don't get it, I'm going to be really upset.
I am not going to be swayed by that sort of talk, Hugh.
Meanwhile, teacher's pet gets to work on the rump,
And you don't want to cut into the meat at all now, Robert.
the expensive end, where there's succulent roasting joints and tender veal escallops.
Final marks, final session. Gil's topside versus my stew.
Very near, spot on. Oh, I can't say it.
No.
8.5. Oh! I'll give Gil 8.5 for that as well, actually. I couldn't give you 9.
So, the cooks can just about butcher, but can the butcher cook?
That's beautiful, yeah.
Ray's juicy veal escallops, cut from the rump, are lightly dusted in seasoned flour and fried in a little butter for just a minute on each side.
Look at that. That's just perfectly pink. Tuck in there. Go for it. Don't be shy. Oh, God. Oh, it just melts, doesn't it?
Oh, it's tender, isn't it?
It's got flavour, though, isn't it?
Beautiful.
And marks out of 10 for our cookery student today?
Well, 10 out of 10.
See, frankly, I'd be scared to give him any less. 10 out of 10, 10.5 maybe.
So, if you want to get cooking with higher welfare veal like Mrs. Kimber's, make sure you ask for British reared rosé veal at your nearest good butcher's or even at the supermarket. Last year I met some fantastic folk who are growing food despite not owning even a bit of land.
Don't moan about not being on an allotments list. Find a bit of land that needs some love and grow on it.
I haven't actually had to buy any vegetables since May.
That's incredible.
These can-do stories inspired the Landshare project, and we've now set up a great website for the scheme
That matches people who want to grow their own food with others who've got space for them to grow it in.
Since we launched Landshare, over 30,000 people have registered, and now the Landshare website is humming with would-be growers and sharers. Our first match came when John and Val Richardson, farmers in Edgeworth near Manchester, handed over 2 acres of their own small farm to the scheme in the form of 15 plots of land. They were all snapped up within days.
I ploughed the field yesterday, not expecting anybody to be wanting anything straight away, and all of a sudden all these people started turning up and helping out, and we all seem to be very, very keen. I'm absolutely amazed.
We'll have our own vegetable site within the farm, but we'll just lend a hand to help get it sorted. It's really exciting as more and more people get involved. So.
Philip Bolton and his family have been dreaming of having a little plot to grow on for years.
We started growing vegetables probably about 4 years ago, growing mainly in pots because we've got no soil in the backyard at all. The allotment waiting lists are 6 or 7 years for most sites. I couldn't even get on the waiting list, it was that bad. So land share was